And a quick update on this stuff. This is the only one out of all of them. I heard the pin fall off. It rattled off around to the back of the car. And so the one side on this side, the female side, it's still here. Let me zoom out a bit. The female side's still here, but the male side left. And it's this, I may have to hit it with that. I told you I need to fix that with that isopon stuff to smooth it out. So I'm going to have to, see how much pressure's on that. I need to bring this up at the same time. I think there was just too much pressure on it, or it just wasn't a good set inside there because it's gone now. So I need to redo that one. And then, of course, I'm still working on getting the seal that's going to look best here. So, yeah, working through the problems. All right, just the update is that we're, well, first thing first, mechanicals. I got an update on the Unichip, and it's good news. The map sensor here, I had to swap it out with a good used one, as you can see, as is written on there, because I got so much pieces and parts. Some of it I was just using for test fitting and things like that, so I never know if a part's good or not, so I'll put a Sharpie on there, and of course that's good. Was driving it, took my daughter to school. I think cumulatively now it's got probably 130 miles on it, to be honest with you. And I had told myself I was going to wait till 500 to get on it and all that stuff. The break-in mindset, of some people differs from others. But I've gotten on it some, obviously, like you guys have seen. But for the most part, I have been taking it easy. Well, if you know anything about the way a map sensor works, there's a flap inside there. And it normally, in our normally aspirated engine condition, there's a vacuum pulled on it. Okay, not many people know this. Your engine doesn't really make vacuum. It's just the difference between what's going on in the cylinder and the atmospheric pressure. Well, there's always pressure in the plenum. There's always a positive pressure. There's a gauge pressure, and then there's a absolute pressure. And without going too far into that, that map sensor is always being pulled on, and that gives that signal that it needs for the computer to know, what load is on the engine. Well, when you boost it, there's that nipple that goes into there. And that nipple, of course, feeds air into this domino size piece. And that's what tells the computer how much quote-unquote vacuum's on the engine and how much load's on it. Full throttle on this car would be 0 pressure or atmospheric pressure, 14.7 pounds. Okay, so that's it's described as, like, say you could draw a column around yourself going all the way up into space. The amount of pressure pressing on you is 14.7 at sea level. It's less, obviously, the higher you go, like in the mountains in Colorado and so forth. But at any rate, and yes, normally there's a red or yellow, whatever color it is. It's a little rubber grommet, kind of a ribbed grommet that goes here. It's on that other one. So, it ain't like I was running without one. So when it sees pressure, that sensor in particular, being that it's a 1-bar map sensor, it can't, and plus there's not even any tables in the stock PCM to be able to add fuel or take away, whatever the case may be, because these cars, the stock PCMs aren't designed or doesn't have the maps in place to deal with pressure above 14.7 pounds. Okay, atmospheric, 0 pressure is what it is. And so, that having been said, the way this car's set up without running any engine management, we're just using the fuel management unit right there to supply fuel. And on timing, we're just relying on the stock PCM to pull out the timing it needs if it needs to. But to aid that, and I do have a little bit larger injectors on here. And to aid the timing, we're using the highest octane fuel available. We're running an octane booster in the tank. We're running 2-step Coulter plugs, and this engine in particular has 8.5 to 1 forged pistons in it. So already we're down a point from the stock compression ratio. So that's our quote-unquote timing that we're doing on this project. Now that's going to change with the Unichip. I won't need the FMU at that point. I can put much larger injectors on here. The fuel pump that's in this thing can handle quite a bit more power. I want to replace the head gasket on this thing with that metal head gasket. I'm in the works right now for that. You guys, if you built engines before and you decided to go with a metal head gasket, you've realized that back in the day when Saturn Motorsports was around, Cometic, there were a few places that had them, but now that our scene's pretty much disappeared, they're just not available. And so if you're going to do one, you got to do it custom. I gave a thought to doing a copperhead gasket, talked to a few people, read a few articles. I'd rather run the metal head gasket. I do have the ARP head studs on here, and I have dual valve springs, which even with the Unichip, I'm not going to try to go much higher than the stock rev limit because this valve train's not designed for Honda-esque revs, okay? I probably wouldn't even do it if I had the retainers and the valves and stuff in here. And, you know, this engine's it's just not meant for high revs like that. And I'm into longevity. I'm into having fun, but I'm also into enjoying it for a long time. And I can make my power. I mean, yes, the other day I hit the speed limiter on here pretty quickly. And I'm going to be removing that with the Unichip, and I'm going to be taking the RPMs up just a hair so I can grab a little bit of that higher RPM power, but not by much. I might just leave it at 7,000 and that's it. So the update on the Unichip, it was a good one actually. To refresh your memory, I bought the Unichip in lieu of buying a standalone engine management system to where I would need to cut into a lot more sensors, and I would need to do startup enrichments, acceleration enrichments, deceleration enrichments, and all that. I've been there, done that. I still have that system. I could have put it on this car, but I didn't want to do that. And my goal has always been to run around without a check engine light on. Yeah, in a couple years, it's not going to matter for this one anyway because it's a 97. It'll turn into a safety-only inspection at 25 years old. So, but still, I mean, I don't want the thing glowing in my face all the time. Plus, the cost, if I was starting over fresh and I was going to buy an aftermarket engine management unit, the cost of those things, and again, with the mentioned installation and tuning, it's just, if there's a simpler option, I'd like it, and that's why I chose the Unichip. I watched, one of the things that got me excited about it was the ease of tuning, and the way I got that information was I saw a guy on YouTube, and I didn't know his name at the time, but clearly he's either from New Zealand or South Africa or something. He has that accent, and he's tuning a Volvo, and if you go search Unichip Volvo, there's like 7 of these little quick, I bet they're less than 30 seconds about, and he just goes in and quickly kind of gives you a real short introduction into how you would, you know, add bigger injectors, mess with timing and all that stuff. And it wasn't supposed to be a teaching, it was just supposed to kind of, I guess he was just kind of showing how easy it is to go in and select the whole map, make the changes only where you want them and so forth. And but it doesn't show installation, it doesn't show anything like that. So when I first bought the Unichip, the guy named Jack Friedman at Unichip US was there. I bought it from him, bought a couple other pieces. I've shown that in one of the other videos, and talked to him a little bit via email and asked him some questions. And only after I bought it did he tell me that, well, to get that level of answer, for me to work with you on that, you would have had to have bought a different package. And come to find out, yeah, if I'd have bought a different package, but if I'd have done that, in order to be a dealer, you need to have a business with a dyno, and you need to be able to service all makes and models and all that. And although this Saturn's one of them, but another one is another make that I'm going to be working on. I was only having 2 because those 2 I'm passionate about. I can be passionate about Hondas, Toyotas, if there's money involved. But I told myself no matter what I did, I'd have to get familiar with the tuning system and installation of it with mine. So if something went wrong, it went wrong on mine and not a customer's car. So there you go. So with that kind of shut off, with that connection terminated outside of simple basic questions, it wouldn't have mattered anyway, because he ended up leaving. And a guy named Tony, I guess it's Woost. I always try to put a German flair on it because I do speak German, and it's Woest. And Wurst. So, but anyway, he took over and he was revamping the website. Apparently, they were fixing some things, I guess, that kind of lagged when Jack was there. And but anyway, so I was in email communications with him, and I think I told you guys that I got to the point where he said, well, let's start over. Let's go ahead and let's identify the connectors on your PCM. And so I looked them over. There weren't really any in there. I sent them pictures in a reply back to the they have a ticket, you know, like a lot of things, you start a ticket and you respond in the ticket windows and stuff back and forth. And I never heard back from him. And knowing he's busy, knowing he's revamping the website, I gave him some time. But finally I got to the point where, look, I just really got to ask these simple questions. I mean, they're simple questions to get my head around. Which way do I go? Do I scrap this thing because I'm not going to buy into a product that I have yet to have had any real world installation or real world tuning on? Because if you do that and you find that it sucks, well, you've invested all that money for nothing. And so at that point, I'd have to go a different route. So sounded like he was going to work with me, and then all communication stopped with him. And then I tried to access the website one day and it was not working. And I said, great, here's another time where I get in on like a underdog type situation. Saturn is it's gone. I could give you other instances where I kind of bought into kind of one of the fringe elements and it ended up being bad. Ron Paul. But anyway, in the end, I couldn't get any communication, so I basically ended up reaching out to Britain. There's some guys that have a YouTube channel in Britain. There's some that have them in New Zealand. There's one that has it in Indonesia or something like that. Britain was the most helpful, but again, being a business and being overseas and only being able to do so much through emails and things like that, that kind of went by the wayside. And I had an access to Mr. Squires through STS Turbo, his old company, and he's willing to help me, but I had yet to reach out to him. So I figured I'd give these guys one more chance. I happened to just call. I called the customer service number, and guess who answered? It was Tony Wurst. The voice sounded real familiar. Turns out he's the one that was on the YouTube videos doing the Volvo tuning. We talked for about 45 minutes and went over the kind of system that I bought. It's called the DIY system. And I get it. I really do. I mean, I'm not holding anything against him. Yeah. But Jack never gave me that impression that, you can buy it, put it in yourself. But even if that's the case, and I'm an electrical engineer, and I'm a mechanical engineer, and I'm an engineer, yeah, just like I did with the electromotive, I can make all the cavity connections correct and all that stuff. But the question that I had was, with the software, when you plug it into the Unichip through your laptop and you fire it up, and the first step it says is download this file from Dastec's wiring schematic files. If I get to that point, no matter if I have it hooked up 100% correctly, every cavity is right, I'm pulling everything off like it should be, would it stop me? And he beat it. When I asked him that question over the phone, he kept beating around the bush. And I kept thinking that, while he's not answering the question directly, yeah, that must be the case. And that's why it's kind of a cheat where you sell this DIY one, but yet in the end, if your car and the actual website says any car, practically any car, and I think they went as far as to say an OBD2 or but I think it can be on any fuel injected car. And I was going to be upset at that point, because if it can be on any car, well, the fact that you can't download a wiring schematic from any car in order to get past that hump in the tuning process, I was going to have a problem with that. Well, he finally got it out. I said, look, Tony, I said, let me put it to you like this. You're standing there with me. You hook up every wire correct. You fire up the software system. In order to go in there and start tuning the thing with fuel and timing and boost by gear and all this stuff, are you going to need to download one of those files if it doesn't exist? No. That's all I wanted. That's all I needed to hear. All that effort, all that time was just to get that answer. So, do I need to talk to Squires and pay an amount over the phone to talk to him? I may still. It just depends when I get to the tuning software side of it, and if I got some questions, I'll call him, because clearly I didn't buy the package from Unichip in order to be able to ask the deeper questions. But I think I'm going to be okay. So that was the one thing that was holding me up, because in order to get to the teach section where it goes in there and kind of helps you get to a base tune, you had to download a wiring schematic. And if I can't get to that part because I didn't, no matter, I can still do it. It's fine. I don't need to be taught how these sensors function and stuff like that. I know. But that was the main question, was do I spend my time installing this thing, get it all set up nice and pretty, use an oscilloscope to find out which wires are what, bought an oscilloscope for that purpose. And also because if I was going to get into this, I was going to need it to find the signals on other people's cars too, not just mine, but other makes, I should say. But so I went ahead and bought it, and so here I am. And if I go ahead and go through the effort of doing all that, am I stuck? And that was my main concern, and that's what's been plaguing me all this time from moving on and getting the Unichip installed. So in the meantime, I've been messing with the engine and doing stuff like that, and just, figure out I'd go test drive it, work out what other bugs. My goal was to drive it 500 miles, get it up on the lift, and find where any oil leaks are at, where any adjustments needed to be made. I want to revisit the way the pipes are running under the car so I can get the cold air side up a little bit higher. It still kind of freaks me out that it's that low, and if I high center something in the road, I'm in trouble. So that kind of stuff, and I can do it. I got plenty of room up in there since I took out the heat shield up there. So that stuff there. So today we're doing a little something different. Putting on the door panels finally. Getting sick and tired of rolling around with this thing looking like a hobo junkyard car. So I had a company, I think I told you, I got these things leathered. And so today I've started cleaning up the panels. I'm going to get these put back inside there and get my door panels on finally, so all my speakers can now work and I can have the full sound that I'm expecting. So that's what I'm working on today. So I'll do the passenger side first because I have forgotten where all the rods connect to, and thank goodness, obviously, I've had to keep the driver's side one on so I could open and close the door. So it's inside there, so I'll be able to grab the old one and know which ones go where and all that good stuff. So I'm going to knock this one out first. Okay, so I got this panel off and I'm putting the leather insert on. And I know I touched base on how I got these things off. When Saturn put these on these panels, there was a plastic post that poked through this hole. And when you got done, you just took something hot and you basically mushroomed it over. Kind of like right there. Okay, so that's how they actually put these things on. Now that might be, no, that's exactly what they did. They ended up just poking through, and then you'd sit there and get something hot and just melt it down. Kind of like braiding the bolt is basically what it is. You heat it up and you pound it so it doesn't come loose. Well, in order to get this insert off so I could leather it, you had to cut or shave those down. And of course, that doesn't leave anything on the insert itself to poke through here so that you can do that same process with melt it down. So what I'm doing is I'm taking these little screws. These end up measuring, it's a number 6 by 3/8 inch. Okay, and I got this kit at Harbor Freight. You can buy these day in and day out there. And then also a corresponding washer where the head is pretty big to kind of give it some pull down power. Now when you put these in, I thought about, okay, maybe I should heat up every one of these screws, and as they go in, they kind of melt in. But since these are self-tapping, the trick is to not get them so long that they go through and then go outside or poke through your leather on the outside. So this size, the size I showed you, the 3/8, number 6 by 3/8 was good, and it's not poking through. Now when you tighten them down, you're not tightening them down really tight, because then, just like anything else, you're tightening a metal screw into a plastic body. You'll strip it out. So you just want to give like a 1/4 or to maybe even just a little, a little bit of a full turn, and that ought to do it. Keep in mind, when you're pulling on this handle from inside, this part here and this part here is excuse me, this part there and that part there, that's supposed to grab the inside metal of the door, and that's what's actually used to pull the door shut. It's not so much these contact points here. So I shouldn't have a problem with these things, you know, doing what they're supposed to do, and go ahead and hold it securely. So now all these are in. What I did was I only tightened them enough to where this washer wouldn't move underneath them, you know, because I didn't want to go any deeper just in case the plastic would break. Of course, it's brittle, and I think probably the argument for heating them up just a little bit will help keep the plastic from being so brittle. It'll more or less melt, but then you have to be more careful when you tighten them down, because obviously, picture, you know, having soft butter and screwing this into the soft butter. It's just going to keep on turning, and so just be careful if you do use any heat. I mean, very little at all. But I just wanted to make sure that these washers wouldn't turn for a couple reasons. I knew that the like this one right here, I got to turn it a little bit more. See how that washer's moving? And the rest of them aren't moving, but also, like, when the base is hitting, this might rattle. Okay, so all in all, this one needs to be turned a little bit too, but just be careful as you're putting them in. And of course, the end result, let me zoom out here, is that. So I think it looks pretty good. It'll contrast well with inside the interior, my leather seats. And of course, here shortly, we're going to get the rear seats leathered and get those in. And then the interior is done. All right. So that's pretty much it on that. As I picked it up to move it, I noticed there were some stress fractures on the very top lip of this thing. And as I picked it up, I saw this outside skin kind of flexing some. And so I went ahead and put some plastic epoxy, a pretty wide, you know, splotch of it on there to help strengthen it up, hold each other. So once it hardens, it ought to be nice and hard and give it some structural rigidity so it doesn't continue to crack. I didn't have enough to get, see how that cracks up right there at the top? I might try to mix up some more and get it up there, but on this side I got pretty good for that. So hopefully it'll strengthen a little bit so it doesn't continue. But again, once it's on the car, I don't think I have a problem. I think since I've had it off and moving it around, these things are super long, as all you guys know. And it just, being that it's old and that plastic is brittle, again, a little bit of caution on those things. That's the reasoning, is because you got to be careful, because these things, as you go to screw into them, they'll basically just crumble. Okay, so that, again, maybe just put just a little bit heat on them. But all these tightened up really good. I'm happy with the result, and everything looks okay on it. So one thing I'm noticing on the driver's side door, and this would be because it was used more, obviously, you know, all the red area that I've circled there, it was stress cracks and stress fractures inside here. On this side too, over there. And of course in the other spots too, you can see I've highlighted those with the red. So with some JB Weld plastic epoxy, I'm just kind of going in that line, I'm kind of bridging from one side to the other to kind of give it a little bit of stability. This will glue up really hard and stuff like that, so it'll help support it. I have to go to the store get some more because I'm out, but I'm done with this side too. It all went good. I did not heat up the things like I said. I didn't have to. So everything worked out okay. I'm happy with that. And so I'll get these stress fractures repaired first before I put the panels on. And now I'm going to go over here on the panel. I'm going to go in and clean all this off. And of course, all this stuff, I'm going to end up taking this off. I'm going to order me some, what's that? Dynomat. And so I'm going to put it, and of course, everywhere there's an indentation for those door hooks to set in. That's the real, like I said, the real pull point on the car. I'm going to just cut holes for that. The Dynamat, though, is not really going to, well, neither does this. I don't know. Yeah, the Dynamat will work. I'll just get the Dynamat. I'll pull all this stuff off of here. Clean all this up, blow all that stuff out of there. There's like that white film inside of here. That's where a lot of my dust and stuff's coming from. I guess it's a noise reduction. I'm not sure. And I guess with the panel on here, it's not really going to matter because it won't blow out of there. But you see, it's like that. I don't know. I'm going to do something with that. But in the meantime, I'm going to clean it up. And then I'm going to lubricate the regulator track, or the regulators gears in here while I'm in here. And then these rods on this car here, it does have remote lock and unlock. And but it doesn't, when I unlock with the remote, it doesn't unlock these all the way. I always have to put the key in and get it to take off. I think these things either need to be lubricated or adjusted, one of the two. I don't know, but I'll play with that too. But outside of that, the door panels may not be on today just because that epoxy is going to need to dry all the way. We'll see. If so, I'll get them on and I'll show you. All right, so the door panel, it's on. I just got to end up doing the handles, the pull handle, and of course the door handle. I like that look. I like the black. The two handles going into here, of course, end up being this like tannish color. So it'll be going here like that. And these are kind of yellowed. I don't know what to do about those. I'm going to research on that and see if I can't get that handled. But outside of that, I like the way the dang panel looks on here. Contrasted pretty good. I think Saturn at one time did these, actually. I'm not sure. But I like it. Just passenger side, driver side next. So the danger in waiting 5 years before you put your door panels back on is you forget how to actually do it. This piece is, I've got it, I just got to pop it in. But these, the pull handles, you got to put those on before you put the door panel on. They screw in from they basically have 3 screw points where you join the halves together, and then the final 2 points get in those screw parts right there. Anyway, I think it looks pretty good. Nice contrast to the black and the tan. And of course the handles, once they're in there, they'll be tan as well. So I think it looks pretty good.